At the bottom line of that whole big long slide is this: stories allow you to influence, persuade, and sell without feeling like you're pitching them or you're promoting something directly. And one of my favorite examples of this, by the way, again, you're going to get, this is kind of hard to read. You'll get this in the slides that you download here in a little bit. But there's a poem that was published back in like 1937 called Father Forgets. And I don't know if anybody's ever read this before, but the first time I read it, I bawled like a baby, and I'm not a crier at all. But it's this, I'll let you guys read it on your own, but it's this story of this dad who is talking about how bad he feels about how hard he's been on his son. And he's trying to measure his son by the yardstick of his own years, and he says, I feel like I'm being way too hard on you. He uses terms like, I tell you to pull up your knickers, because this is back in the 1930s. So whenever I read that story, I see myself in that dad, and I see all the ways that I'm too hard on my own kids, that I'm too hard on my son, that I expect too much of him at his young age. So my question to you is this: if he had published something that, instead of calling it Father Forgets and telling his own story of how guilty he feels about being hard on his children, if he had published an article called Dads, Listen Up, Here's Why You're Being Terrible Fathers and Why You Need to Change Your Ways, how effective would that have been? None, right? Nobody wants to be told what to do. Nobody wants to be told why they're wrong. But when we can see in someone else's story maybe the error of our own ways, we can come to our own conclusion as to making a decision. And that's incredibly powerful, because Seth Godin said this. I love this quote. People don't believe what you tell them. So if you're out there trying to say, hey, Santa's awesome, you guys need to join Santa, it's the best thing ever, nobody cares, right? They're not going to believe you just because you tell them. They rarely believe what you show them. So you could show them how much money you've made and saying, oh my God, look how much money I've made. And I don't know, that could be faked. But people always believe what they tell themselves. And so one of the biggest secrets I've learned as a marketer is that whenever I can tell a story the right way, and I get my prospect this close to discovering what I want them to discover or believing what I want them to believe, but I don't tell them to believe it. I let them come that last little bit on their own. I let them form the conclusion on their own. They own it. It's, I made this decision. This was my decision. And they will defend that decision, and they will go to bat for that decision forever because they feel like they made it. Does that make sense? Yes? So I would argue that one of the best people ever at doing this, whether you're a Christian or not, there's no arguing that Jesus Christ was probably the most influential man who ever lived, right? So how did Jesus get people to believe what he wanted them to believe? A large part of it was through stories or parables, right? And so one of my favorite examples of this is the story of the Good Samaritan, right? How many of you know the story of the Good Samaritan? Yes? Now, Jesus told his followers a story about a man who was walking down a dangerous Jerusalem turnpike, and he let them form their own conclusion about what that meant for how they should behave, didn't he, right? He said there was once a man walking from Jerusalem to Jericho. He was, come upon by thieves. He was robbed and mugged. Now, every person listening to that story either knew somebody or a story of someone who had been robbed on that dangerous turnpike. So they immediately connected with the story. They were immediately drawn in. And when Jesus told the story of, the Levite passed by on the other side, well, they're thinking, what a jerk. I don't want to be like him. Jesus didn't say, you need to be good to your neighbor. He didn't have to, right? Instead, he was able to say, the Levite passed by on the other side, and they were indignant. Wow, how could they do that? The priest walked by on the other side of the road. Oh my gosh, how could he do that? And then he said the Good Samaritan, somebody who would never go over and help this person, went over and bandaged him and cared for his wounds, and they went, I want to be like the Good Samaritan. So Jesus influenced them, persuaded them to believe what he wanted them to believe without being preachy, without being pitchy, right, as we often feel. And that's a perfect example of how you can use that in your marketing. So, having said all of that, here's why this matters to you as marketers. To me, this is how I envision my prospects' wallet looking like. Has anybody ever felt like this is how your prospects protect their wallet? I know I feel like that. It's like I want them to open it up. I know what I have will help them, and yet they keep it under lock and key, and it seems like they won't unlock that padlock for anything. Would you like to know the combination to get that unlocked so they will give you money? Yes. I know the combination. I am happy to give it to you if you would like it. Yes? Yes. Okay, great. So the combination is this. It all starts with having a good offer, okay? Misha yesterday was talking a little bit about how some of the top earners here who are crushing it, they're doing their own webinars, and they've got their own bonuses that they're giving away. So one of the things that JT told you before I came out, that I was 3 years in a row the top #1 earning affiliate in another affiliate program. I was promoting other people's products, but the way I crushed it was primarily by having my own, a really good offer. While everybody else was saying, this company is amazing, you should totally join this company, and let me tell you all the logic of why our comp plan is amazing, and let's talk about the logic of how long they've been in business, and all of the stuff that nobody cared about. I, first of all, got them to trust me and build a relationship with me, and then I created my own offer. So I think it's important that we take a moment to really clarify, what do I mean by offer? A good offer is everything that you offer to someone to create what I call the spark, okay? So I'll explain why this is on a table with 4 legs in a minute. This analogy will come together in a minute. But first, let me explain why I call it the spark. When cavemen wanted to create fire before we had matches, and they rubbed 2 sticks together, right? They created a ton of friction until the sticks finally went, I can't hold on anymore, spark. I'm going to give up. I'm going to spark. Well, our prospects have that exact same spark. We have to create enough emotional friction with our offer that, because nobody comes in to my webinar saying, I'm going to pay this guy money today. They never do that. They come saying, I want free stuff, and at the end, I want this free training. I think he's going to help me. And then at the end, I've built up so much emotional friction that there's a spark, and they go, all right. And throughout my webinar, they come in like this. I'll see what this guy's about. Probably just one more jerk marketer. And then as I go throughout the webinar, it kind of, this turns into, okay. And then it turns into, what? Well, that was pretty good. And then it turns into, oh, maybe I want this, right? And then eventually it turns into, okay, I'll pull out my wallet and I'll buy, because I create enough emotional friction that I create that spark. So what do you have to do in your offers to create that emotional spark? Well, you might want to write a few of these down. First of all, when you add your own bonuses, that could be the #1 thing. It gives people a reason to buy from you over everybody else in the company, okay? So that's the #1 thing, is have your own bonuses. And it could simply be a call with you. It could be a short webinar with you, a short training. And a good example I like to give of this, it reminds me of Sports Illustrated back in the day. Does anybody remember the ads when Sports Illustrated offered the free football phone to get you to take a subscription to the Sports Illustrated? Does anybody remember that? Okay, gosh, I'm showing how old I am, I guess. So here's the thing. Sports Illustrated on its own, yeah, is it something that guys would want to subscribe to? Yeah, but without having a good offer, right? What most people in SAN and any other company think is, well, this is a great company. We got a great comp plan. We got great products. That's my offer. No, it's not. And it won't be enough. Just like that Sports Illustrated subscription wasn't enough. So they said, hey, when you call today, we're going to give you this free football phone just for signing up for a trial subscription to the Sports Illustrated. And we're going to give you the swimsuit issue for free, right? And if you do it by XYZ date, we're going to give it to you at such and such discount. All of that together created enough emotional friction that the person who wasn't planning to get a Sports Illustrated went, spark, I'm going to do it, right? So how can you create those same kind of spark with your prospects? Well, think about that Sports Illustrated offer. Bonus, football phone, deadline, if you do it by such and such date, discount. So maybe if you can't discount your products that you're promoting in SAN, maybe you can have your own bonus that you say it's normally XYZ, but you're going to get it for free when you buy by such and such date. Just as a free bonus, deadline, incredibly important, okay? You've got to create some level of urgency. So all of those things combined are what go into creating a good offer that's going to create the spark, okay?